The stage was set for what was supposed to be a light-hearted reunion on The Kelly Clarkson Show, with country music superstar Blake Shelton making a highly anticipated appearance to catch up with his longtime friend and former The Voice co-coach, Kelly Clarkson. Fans of both artists were buzzing with excitement, expecting their signature playful banter, heartfelt stories, and maybe even a duet to reminisce about their time together on the reality singing competition. The audience, both in the studio and watching from home, was ready for a feel-good episode filled with laughter and nostalgia. However, what unfolded was far from the jovial exchange everyone expected. Tensions began to simmer early in the interview, as Kelly, known for her candid and unfiltered hosting style, dove into topics that seemed to catch Blake off guard. The conversation started innocently enough, with Kelly joking about Blake's recent projects, including his new reality show The Road and his departure from The Voice after 23 seasons. She playfully teased him about retiring from the show, suggesting he might be too big for his cowboy boots now. Blake laughed it off at first, but his smile seemed strained, hinting at an underlying discomfort. As the interview progressed, Kelly brought up Blake's personal life, including his marriage to Gwen Stefani, which has often been a topic of public fascination. She asked pointed questions about how he balances fame, family, and his Oklahoma ranch life, perhaps intending to keep the tone light but inadvertently stepping into sensitive territory. Blake's responses grew shorter, his tone sharper, and the audience could sense a shift in the atmosphere. The chemistry that once defined their on-screen dynamic was starting to crack, and what began as a friendly chat was veering towards something far more intense. By the time Kelly made a comment about Blake's past comments on The Voice pay dispute set an old rumor about tensions with her over salary. Blake's demeanor changed entirely. His face tightened, and he leaned forward, clearly caught off guard by the mention of a topic he'd long since moved past. The audience gasped as he interrupted Kelly mid-sentence, saying, "I didn't come here to rehash old drama, Kelly." The room fell silent, and Kelly, visibly taken aback, tried to pivot with a laugh, but the damage was done. Blake's frustration was palpable, and the once warm atmosphere turned icy. What was meant to be a nostalgic reunion was now a ticking time bomb, with both stars struggling to regain their footing. The segment ended abruptly for a commercial break, leaving viewers at home wondering if the tension would escalate further or if the two would find a way to smooth things over. Little did anyone know, the real fireworks were yet to come, setting the stage for a moment that would dominate headlines and social media for days. As the show returned from the commercial break, the audience could sense the lingering tension between Blake Shelton and Kelly Clarkson, though both tried to mask it with professional smiles. Kelly, ever the seasoned host, attempted to steer the conversation toward safer waters, asking Blake about his upcoming music projects and his new album, for recreational use only. She complimented his latest single, joking that it was so catchy it stuck in my head like a bad jingle. Blake nodded, offering a half-hearted chuckle, but his body language told a different story. Arms crossed, eyes darting to the side, as if he was counting down the minutes until he could leave the set. The audience, still reeling from the earlier exchange, was on edge, waiting for the next spark to ignite. Kelly, perhaps sensing the need to lighten the mood, brought up a funny story from their The Voice days, recalling how Blake once tried to steal one of her contestants with an over-the-top pitch involving a promise of a free tractor. The crowd laughed, but Blake's response was curt, "Yeah, well, I don't need to bribe anyone anymore." The comment landed awkwardly, and Kelly's smile faltered as she tried to keep the energy up. She pivoted to a fan-favorite topic, Blake's friendship with Carson Daly and their antics on The Voice. But even this seemed to irritate Blake, who muttered something about everyone always bringing up the past. The audience could feel the conversation unraveling, and social media was already buzzing with clips of the earlier tense moment, with fans speculating about what was really going on. Kelly, determined to salvage the interview, asked Blake to share a story about his Oklahoma ranch, hoping to tape into his love for the simple life. Instead, Blake snapped, "I'm not here to talk about my personal life, Kelly. Can we stick to the music?" The audience gasped audibly, and Kelly's eyes widened, clearly unprepared for the sharp rebuke. She tried to laugh it off, saying, "Okay, cowboy, we'll keep it to the tunes. But the tension was undeniable. Blake's frustration seemed to stem from more than just the questions up. It was as if years of unspoken issues, perhaps from their The Voice days or personal dynamics, were bubbling to the surface. The crew behind the scenes reportedly exchanged nervous glances, unsure how to handle the escalating situation. Kelly, visibly flustered but trying to maintain her composure, moved to a lighter segment, inviting Blake to play a quick game involving country music trivia. But Blake's participation was half-hearted, and his answers were clipped, signaling that he was no longer fully engaged. The segment ended with an awkward pause, and as the cameras panned to the audience, it was clear that everyone was waiting for what would happen next. The third segment of the Kelly Clarkson Show episode featuring Blake Shelton took an even more dramatic turn. As the tension between the two stars reached a boiling point, Kelly, still trying to keep the show on track, introduced a musical performance, hoping that singing together might bridge the gap that had formed. She suggested they perform their 2012 duet of Don't You Wanna Stay, a song they'd sung together during Kelly's tour, which had been a fan favorite. Blake agreed, but his reluctance was obvious. He barely made eye contact as they took the stage, and his posture was stiff. The performance started off well, with Kelly's powerful vocals blending with Blake's signature twang. But halfway through, Blake missed a cue, causing a noticeable stumble in the song. The audience clapped politely, but the chemistry was off, and Kelly's attempt to laugh it off with a quip about Blake forgetting his own lyrics only seemed to irritate him further. He shot back, "Maybe I'm just tired of singing the same old songs, Kelly." The comment hung in the air, and the audience's murmurs grew louder. Kelly, clearly stung but trying to maintain her professionalism, wrapped up the performance and transitioned to a Q&A segment with audience questions. One fan asked Blake about his decision to leave The Voice, a topic that had been a sore spot in recent interviews. Blake's response was laced with sarcasm. "I left because I wanted to. All right, I don't need to explain myself to everyone." Kelly tried to interject with the supportive comment, saying, "We all miss you on the show, Blake," but he cut her off, saying, "I don't miss the drama, that's for sure." The audience was stunned, and social media erupted with speculation that Blake was throwing shade at Kelly or the show's producers. The tension was now impossible to ignore, and Kelly's smile was beginning to crack under the pressure. She tried to pivot to a lighter question about Blake's favorite country artist, but he answered curtly, "I listen to myself mostly," echoing a joking comment he'd made in a recent interview but delivering it with an edge that felt pointed. The crew reportedly signaled for another commercial break, hoping to give both stars a moment to cool off. Behind the scenes, sources later claimed that Blake was frustrated by what he perceived as Kelly's digging into personal matters, while Kelly felt blindsided by this hostility, believing she was simply doing her job as a host. The stage was set for a confrontation that would soon make headlines, as the once close friends seemed to be unraveling in real time. By the fourth segment, the atmosphere on the Kelly Clarkson Show was electric with tension, and viewers at home were glued to their screens, sensing that something big was about to happen. Kelly, ever the professional, tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground, asking Blake about his new reality show, The Road, which premiered on CBS in October 2025. She praised his behind-the-scenes work, noting that it was a big deal for a country star to take on such a project. Blake nodded but offered little enthusiasm, responding with, "It's just another job, Kelly. Not everything's a headline." His dismissive tone caught Kelly off guard, and she hesitated before asking about his experience working with new talent on the show. Blake's response was unexpectedly sharp. "I don't need to be everyone's mentor, you know. I'm just trying to do my thing." The audience sensed the growing rift, and Kelly's attempts to keep the mood light were falling flat. She tried to inject humor, joking about how Blake's Oklahoma charm must be winning over the contestants, but he didn't take the bait, instead staring at her with a look that seemed to say, "Enough." Social media was now flooded with reactions, with fans divided as some defending Blake's apparent frustration, citing his right to privacy, while others felt Kelly was being unfairly targeted. The conversation took another turn when Kelly brought up a recent rumor about Blake's alleged walk-off from Good Morning America after a clash with George Stephanopoulos, a story that had been debunked but still lingered online. Blake's eyes narrowed, and he leaned forward, saying, "You really want to go there, Kelly? You know those stories are nonsense." Kelly, caught off guard, tried to backtrack, saying, "I'm just reading what's out there, Blake. You know how it is." But Blake wasn't having it. He shook his head, muttering, "This is why I don't do these shows anymore." The audience gasped, and Kelly's face flushed as she tried to maintain her composure. The crew, sensing the situation spiraling, signaled for a quick pivot to a pre-recorded segment, but Blake's frustration was now front and center. Reports later surfaced that Blake felt Kelly was pushing buttons by bringing up old controversies, while Kelly's team insisted she was simply trying to engage with trending topics. The segment ended with an awkward silence, and the audience was left wondering if the two would be able to salvage their friendship or if this was the beginning of the end. The fifth segment of the Kelly Clarkson Show marked the tipping point, as Blake Shelton's frustration boiled over into a moment that would become the talk of the entertainment world. Kelly, still trying to salvage the episode, invited Blake to participate in a fan-favorite game segment called Country Confessions, where guests answer quirky questions about their lives and careers. Blake reluctantly agreed, but his participation was minimal, and his answers were laced with sarcasm. When Kelly asked, "What's the one thing you'd never admit to doing on your ranch?" Blake shot back, "I don't know, Kelly. Maybe I'm tired of people assuming I'm just a cowboy stereotype." The audience laughed nervously, unsure if he was joking or genuinely upset. Kelly, visibly rattled, tried to keep the game moving, but Blake's next response was even more pointed. When asked about his favorite memory from The Voice, he said, "Honestly, the day I decided to leave." The crowd gasped, and Kelly's smile froze as she realized the comment could be interpreted as a dig at her and the show. Social media exploded with clips of the moment, with hashtags like #BlakeWalks, often #Kelly vs Blake trending within minutes. Kelly tried to pivot to a lighter question, but Blake interrupted, saying, "I'm done with the games, Kelly. I came here to talk about my music, not to be grilled about my life." The audience fell silent, and Kelly's eyes widened as she tried to respond, but Blake was already standing up. In a moment that shocked everyone, he unclipped his microphone, tossed it on the couch, and said, "I'm out of here." The camera followed him as he walked off the set, leaving Kelly stunned and the audience in disbelief. The crew scrambled to cut to a commercial break, but not before capturing Kelly's shocked expression as she tried to process what had just happened. Behind the scenes, sources later claimed that Blake felt ambushed by Kelly's questions, particularly those touching on his personal life and past controversies. Kelly, meanwhile, was reportedly devastated, feeling that she had simply been doing her job as a host. The walk-off was a rare moment of raw emotion from Blake, who was known for his laid-back demeanor, and it left fans and media outlets speculating about the true nature of their falling out. As the show resumed after the dramatic walk-off, Kelly Clarkson was left to address the audience alone, her composure shaken but her professionalism intact. She took a deep breath and apologized to the viewers, saying, "Well, folks, that was unexpected. Sometimes things get a little heated, but we're all human, right?" The audience clapped supportively, but the awkwardness was palpable. Kelly tried to fill the remaining time with the solo performance of one of her own songs, but her voice cracked slightly, betraying her emotional state. Social media was ablaze with reactions, with some fans praising Kelly for handling the situation with grace, while others criticized Blake for what they saw as an overreaction. The incident quickly became headline news, with outlets like TMZ and People running stories about the explosive clash between the two stars. Speculation ran rampant about what had caused Blake's outburst, with some pointing to the recent death of his former manager, Brandon Blackstock, Kelly's ex-husband, as a possible source of tension. Though Blake and Kelly had remained close after her divorce, Some insiders suggested that Blake's decision to end his professional relationship with Blackstock had created unspoken friction. Others believe the clash was simply a result of Blake's frustration with the media's constant scrutiny of his personal life, particularly his marriage to Gwen Stefani. Kelly, for her part, avoided addressing the incident directly in the days that followed, though she posted a cryptic message on social media about staying true to yourself. Blake, meanwhile, remained silent, retreating to his Oklahoma ranch and declining interview requests. The incident sparked a broader conversation about the pressures of celebrity interviews and the fine line between playful banter and crossing personal boundaries. Fans of The Voice were particularly vocal, lamenting the apparent fracture and what had once been one of the show's most beloved friendships. As clips of the walk-off continued to circulate, the entertainment world waited to see if either star would offer an apology or explanation, or if this was truly the end of their once close bond. In the days following Blake Shelton's dramatic walk-off from the Kelly Clarkson Show, the incident dominated entertainment news, with analysts and fans dissecting every moment of the tense exchange. Talk shows, podcasts, and YouTube channels replayed the clip of Blake tossing his microphone and storming off, with some calling it a career-defining moment for both stars. Kelly Clarkson, known for her resilience, returned to her show the next day with her usual energy, but she avoided mentioning the incident directly, instead focusing on her guests and music performances. Behind the scenes, sources claimed she was deeply hurt by Blake's reaction, feeling that she had been unfairly targeted. Some insiders suggested that Kelly had been unaware of how sensitive Blake was about certain topics, particularly his departure from The Voice and his personal life. Others speculated that Blake's outburst was less about Kelly and more about his frustration with the media in general, as he'd faced similar situations on other shows, like the rumored Good Morning America walk-off that was later debunked. Blake's fans rallied to his defense, arguing that he had every right to set boundaries and that Kelly's questions had been too invasive. Meanwhile, Kelly's supporters praised her for handling the situation with professionalism, pointing out that she had tried multiple times to steer the conversation to safer topics. The incident also reignited discussions about their past dynamics on The Voice, where their playful rivalry sometimes masked deeper tensions. A 2018 rumor about a feud over pay disparities resurfaced, with some outlets speculating that Blake's walk-off was a culmination of unresolved issues from their time as coaches. Social media platforms like X were flooded with memes, hot takes, and fan theories, with some calling for a public reconciliation and others declaring the friendship over. Industry experts weighed in, noting that such public clashes are rare for Blake, who is typically seen as affable and easygoing. The incident also raised questions about the pressures of daytime TV, where hosts are expected to push boundaries to create viral moments, sometimes at the expense of their guests' comfort. As the dust settled, both stars remained silent on the matter, leaving fans to wonder if they would ever address the clash directly or if their once close friendship would become a casualty of the spotlight. The fallout from Blake Shelton's walk-off from the Kelly Clarkson Show continued to reverberate through the entertainment world weeks later, with no clear resolution in sight. Fans of both Blake and Kelly were left divided, with some hoping for a reconciliation and others believing the incident had exposed a deeper rift that might never heal. Entertainment outlets reported that Blake had returned to his Oklahoma ranch, focusing on his music and personal life, while Kelly continued to host her show with her trademark warmth and humor. However, sources close to the production revealed that the incident had sparked a behind-the-scenes review of how guest interviews are handled, with producers reevaluating the balance between engaging content and respecting personal boundaries. Some speculated that Blake's frustration stemmed from a broader exhaustion with the media, as he'd faced similar scrutiny on other shows, including the debunked Today with Jenna Friends walk-off rumors. Kelly, meanwhile, was reportedly taking the high road, focusing on her upcoming Song Stories series and her role as a coach on The Voice Season 29. The incident also prompted a wave of nostalgia among fans, who revisited old clips of Blake and Kelly's camaraderie on The Voice, including their iconic duets and playful banter. Many expressed hope that the two would find a way to mend their friendship, citing their long history and mutual respect. Some fans even launched a hashtag, #BlakeandKellyReunite, urging the stars to reconcile publicly. Industry insiders suggested that a joint appearance or statement could help repair their image, but neither star seemed eager to address the issue directly. Blake's silence was particularly notable, as he typically uses humor to diffuse controversy, while Kelly's cryptic social media posts hinted at her disappointment without naming Blake explicitly. The clash also sparked a broader conversation about the pressures of fame, with commentators noting that even the most affable celebrities can reach a breaking point when faced with relentless questioning. As the story continued to unfold, it became clear that the incident was more than just a viral moment. It was a reminder of the complex dynamics between public personas and personal boundaries. Whether Blake and Kelly will ever share a stage again remains uncertain, but their clash has left an indelible mark on their legacies, proving that even the strongest friendships can be tested under the glare of the spotlight.